One of two distractions at Bengals training camp officially knocked out. Shemar Stewart, the Bengals' first-round draft pick in the 2025 draft, officially under contract. Welcome in, everybody. Chatterbox Bengals. I'm Craig Sandlin, joined by Mike Hart, the Chatterbox MVP. If you're joining us on Saturday or Friday night, this might be the third time you've seen Mike in 24 hours, but he's just killing it like normal. So appreciate you joining, Mike. How's everything going? You ready for the weekend?
Oh yeah, ready for hopefully a red sweep and more Bengals training camp to get us excited for this upcoming season.
Yeah, the holdout didn't last too long. Only 3 days have passed in Bengals camp. So Shemar Stewart didn't miss a whole lot, but he missed all of the offseason workouts. Obviously was in attendance for some of them, but ultimately didn't participate in any. So now they've got him under contract. Hopefully on Sunday, which is the next, I believe the next open training camp, fans will get their first glimpse at Shemar Stewart. Hopefully, there's been reports, obviously, of him working out at Texas A&M, so hopefully he's in shape and ready to go. But when you first heard the news, Mike, what was your initial reaction to signing Shemar Stewart?
Yeah, my initial reaction was actually surprised because, frankly, I thought the Hendrickson deal looked closer to the finish line. From everything that we had heard from both sides and Mike Brown's comments and things like that, it seemed like both sides were set in, and it was almost like a matter of pride that they weren't going to cave on this. So when I saw that, it shocked me that that was something that came through. But it looks like from some of the reporting that we got a little bit of compromise on both sides, which I guess is how all negotiations should work, right? And I'm just happy that this guy that, his knock on it was that he was going to need the work. He was going to need the reps going in to be able to be a contributor this year as a first-round pick, that he's going to be able to do that in Al Golden's defense, and that we'll be able to hopefully see him contribute to this year's team.
Yeah, a lot of conversation, obviously, after the draft about Shemar Stewart's ability to finish and create tackles and finish the tackles. So I'm sure that the defensive coaches are anxious to get their hands on him and get him going and getting some reps under his belt. You mentioned the compromise, Mike, and I do want to talk about this for a minute because, to us laymen's seems a little silly, right? Shemar Stewart was the last of the 2025 NFL draft picks to sign his contract. Every other draft pick had already signed. And ultimately, it came down to language that Cincinnati had not previously had in their contract, but many other NFL teams did have in their contract about conduct detrimental and ultimately behaviors that may have led Shemar Stewart to not being able to participate in football, and whether or not his guaranteed money would then be guaranteed or not. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the Bengals get their language into the contract. Shemar Stewart, as a compromise, gets an additional $500,000 up front in his signing bonus, basically moves $500,000 from December to today. So what would have been $5.2 million today and $5.2 million in December now becomes $5.7 million today and $4.8 in December. A compromise that, at least in my eyes, leans a little bit the Bengals' favor. What's your take on that?
Yeah, this smells like a agent needing to save face, right? As the money that he was already going to get, he just gets it a little bit earlier, and now to Shemar, and then all his other clients can say, I got the Bengals to cave. I held out against them, and went up toe to toe with one of the historically the most stubborn teams when it comes to contracts. So, but yeah, I agree. The Bengals were pretty dug in on this language, and I think Duke Tobin had some good words on that. Just the idea of just like they've evolved over time, and that's where this is going with the league. And we wanted to make sure that these contracts were very similar to basically what was available throughout the rest of the league. And yeah, it seems like the Bengals were able to do that, and then Shemar's agent was just like, okay, we'll accept this money sooner, just so that we're talking about a compromise and not talking about them caving or them or not getting everything that they want.
Yeah, ultimately the language, to me at least, if I'm talking about guaranteed money and I'm not able to play, it doesn't really make sense for me to have to pay you that guaranteed money. But understand Shemar's perspective, where that language wasn't in the contract last year. You're trying to use me as setting a new precedent, and didn't want to be that precedent, but ultimately ends up signing the contract with the Bengals language. But there had been a lot of noise over the last couple of days about Zac Hiller, who is Shemar Stewart's agent, and some of the previous clients that he's worked with, and some potential disagreements there in terms of the representation. So Shemar Stewart gets what he wanted, which was some extra guaranteed money up front. The Bengals get what they want, and that is the language in there that allows them to void guarantees in the future. Now, I mentioned at the top, obviously, this is just one of two distractions that the Bengals had, and you mentioned it earlier. Trey Hendrickson still without an extension on his end. Reports earlier today that Hendrickson willing to walk away if he doesn't get the deal that he wants, and that ultimately the Bengals and Hendrickson are aligned on the cash figures for the contract, but Hendrickson wants more guarantees later in the contract than just year one, which is what the Bengals are offering today.
Yeah, and I completely understand why Hendrickson wants that. He is 31. He's coming off two of the probably the best defensive sack seasons that the Bengals have ever had. So I understand his thought on that, but to me, that sounds like, I don't want to say it's all talk, because Trey Hendrickson is a pretty emotional and just uh, let's just say if there's somebody that would actually walk away, I could see Hendrickson doing that. But to me, this feels more of a, hey, get it out the Schefter, that I'm willing to walk away, kind of as like a continual negotiation ploy. To, if I'm going to play chicken with the Bengals, they need to know that I'm willing to sit out a whole year. I'm not sure if he actually is, but I mean, I see why he would be saying something like that, because if he's got to have to do something in order to get the Bengals to budge on that other year. It's sad when there aren't, when the money is there, and it's just like, but the years don't work out, because at least in my mind, it's just like, well, you if anything, you get a chance to go out and get more money in that third year that you don't have, you're not under contract with the Bengals. So to me, there's more earning potential with a shorter deal if you genuinely think that you're going to be as productive as you have been in the past couple of years. So, I don't know. I see why he says it, but I'm not sure if we get to there and he's able to necessarily follow through with not playing football this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, he's talked a lot over this offseason about wanting to take care of his family and having those guarantees as he enters the last, or the back end, I guess, of his career is the best way to put it. Trent Hendrickson obviously been a huge contributor for the Bengals defense over the last couple of years, ever since being picked up from New Orleans last 2 years, 17 and a half sacks each year. Look, you get a guy in Shemar Stewart who obviously could use some mentorship and some coaching. Being able to sign a guy like Trey Hendrickson and getting him into camp to be able to work hand in hand with Shemar Stewart, who's the presumed heir to the throne of Trey Hendrickson, seems important to me. So if the Bengals can get this done sooner than later, certainly would be beneficial, not only for Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals, but also for Shemar Stewart to get that kind of mentorship from a veteran who's shown for the last several years, 8+ sacks in each of the last 5 years, that how to be a professional. So at least in my eyes, important to get that Trey Hendrickson deal done as well, because quite frankly, if you don't have anything on the defensive line in terms of a proven edge rusher.
Yeah, and an understated part of it too is you can put aside camp distractions, right? We had Jamar's hold in last year that kind of went all the way to the beginning of the season. And if you're able to sign Trey, however you get the job done, we can just have, for the most part, a relatively normal, knock on wood, let's hope nobody gets catastrophically injured, but a normal training camp without having to answer questions. Joe Burrow doesn't have to go there and answer questions about his defensive lineman. He can go up there and talk about how his arm's feeling, or how he's progressing with the offense, or what he's seeing with this new defensive coordinator that he's having to deal with. And I think that's maybe an underrated part of all this, is if they're able to get this done, that we can just put these distractions behind us and just be ready to have and get excited for football season without this. But what about this in the back of our minds? I also think
Go ahead.
I'm also interested to see how maybe this Stewart signing may have an effect on any Bengals leverage that they might have had with the Trey discussions, right? Trey is just, obviously Shemar is unproven, but Trey is like, you have literally no one if you don't sign me. Right now, there's Shemar, who, while unproven, you can at least say is like, hey, well, we have somebody here that we can feel, whether this is true or not, but they can say we can feel good about moving forward with in the future. So I wonder if that adds any leverage to the discussion at all, even though Shemar is still unproven commodity. He's still a first-round pick.
Yeah, ultimately for a team that missed the playoffs last year due to early season struggles, dropped obviously the opener to the New England Patriots, and then a couple heartbreakers in the first couple games, including the Chiefs and others. Ultimately, this team has talked about starting faster. Zac Hiller talked about making some changes to this training camp period and how they are going to attack this preseason. Having this distraction of Trey Hendrickson, at least Shemar Stewart's off the table, but having this distraction now of Trey Hendrickson is going to continue to linger until he's signed in camp. So the sooner the better for this team, who does have aspirations to be a Super Bowl contender again in 2025. If that's going to happen, they need both Shemar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson to be contributors to this defense, in my opinion. Again, Shemar Stewart signs a 4-year, fully guaranteed $18.97 million contract. He gets $10.4 million in signing bonus. The Bengals get their language. Shemar Stewart gets an extra $500,000 at signing. For Mike Hart, this has been Chatterbox Bengals. We appreciate you tuning in. And as always, be sure to subscribe to Chatterbox Sports for all the latest and greatest for your Cincinnati sports teams. Until next time, everybody, Hoo Day.